Hey there, this is Kamal, and in this video we're going to learn about CSS. So let's get this started. Alright, so first things first, what is CSS? So CSS is an abbreviation for Cascading Style Sheets. So essentially what it means is that by using CSS, we can stylize the HTML website. So you can think of HTML and CSS as a human body, wherein HTML is the skeletal structure of the human and CSS is like the styling, meaning that it can be considered to be the skin or the clothes that we wear to make ourselves look good. And that is because by default HTML structure is not that good looking, so we have to apply CSS to make it look better. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So I have a project open here, and in that project I have a file called as index.html. And inside that index.html, I have the basic boilerplate template, and along with that, inside the body section, I have a heading and also a paragraph. So both of these are dummy content. Alright, so now let's open this inside the live server. So right click here and click on open with live server. Okay, so let's place this on the right hand side and let's place this on the left hand side. Okay, so this is what we have for now. So there's actually three ways that we can add CSS to this HTML website. The first way is to directly use the CSS on the element that you want to stylize. So like let's say I want to change the color of this heading, and by default it is black, right? So let's say I want to change it to red. The way that we can do that is by typing in an attribute called as style. So we are going to type the attribute, and inside the quotations you're going to give the property. So let's say I want to change the color, right? So I can type in color, give a colon, and then give a space, and then type in the color name. So let's say I want to give it as red. I can type in red, then end it with a semicolon. Let's save that. And once I do that, automatically, as you can see, the heading has changed from black to red. In this way, you can type in any property that you want. So like, let's say I can change the background as well. So I can type in background, and then I can give in a color. So let's say I'm going to type in black. I can do that and I can save that. Once I do that, the background color will change from white to black. So all of this is well and good, but the main problem here is that if you want to apply this exact same property to the next element as well, like the paragraph, then you have to copy this and paste it here. Then the property will be applied, but let's say you want to make a change. In that case, you have to change it here as well as here. So if I want to give it as blue, I have to do it here, then I have to go back here and do it for this as well. So that becomes a tedious task, right? So you're not able to manage all the elements at once. So in order to simplify this, what we can do is that instead of typing the style inside the element itself, we can actually type it somewhere else. And the way that we can do that is that we can actually type in the styling inside the head section. So below this title, if you want, you can type in a tag. So the tag is going to be style. Alright, we had an attribute here called as style, right? So here in this case, we're going to use a tag called as style. So we have opening tag and we have a closing tag. Now in between these two tags, you can type in the CSS properties. But the main thing is that you have to specify which element that property has to be applied to. So like let's say I want to apply the red color property to this h1. So now I have to use the h1, which is the selector or the name of the tag. So I have to type in the name, then start the curly braces. Now inside this, I can type in the property. So similar to how we were typing that inside the style attribute, similarly you can type in the color, then give a colon, give a space, type in red and end it with a semicolon. Once I save that, you'll have the same properties applied once again. You can do the same thing with the paragraph as well. If you want, you can type in P, give a color, give it as red, and that will be applied. So both of these approaches are good, but the main problem here is that in both of these approaches, we're directly typing the style inside the HTML section. And if you were using the style attribute which we had here, that means you're typing the styling directly to the element, and it will become a tedious task for you to manage each and every element because you have to go to that particular element, you have to search for that, and you have to change the styling. Though that is rectified in the second approach, the main problem here is that you're trying to type in the styling inside the HTML file. So what happens is that the HTML and CSS will be combined into a single file, and that increases the file size of the HTML, and that will be difficult for you to manage as well. So it is always recommended to keep HTML and CSS separate. So the way that we can do that is first let's create a styling file. So I'm going to type in the name as style.css. So you have to remember that the extension is going to be .css. So I can give it as anything, but it has to be .css. So inside that file, you can actually cut all the properties that you have here. You can cut that from here and paste it inside the style.css. Now, if I save this, as you can see here, these properties are not being applied, and that is because this HTML file is actually not linked to this style file. So if you want the properties from the style file to be applied inside the HTML, you have to connect them. And the way that we can do that is by typing in link. So you're going to type in link And by default, whenever you type in link, you're going to get two attributes associated with it. The first one is relation, that is rel. The second one is href, which stands for hyperlink reference. This is what we have already seen inside the a tag, which is the anchor tag. So inside the href, you're going to give the file name or the location of where the file is located. So in this case, we're trying to connect to the style file, right? So I can type in style.css. Now this file is linked and automatically the styling has been applied. And the relation is something that is going to mention what type of relation this HTML file has with style.css. And in this case, the style.css is acting as a style sheet for the HTML website. So in this way, you can connect to an external CSS file. So there are three technical terms that you need to remember. The first one is that if you apply the styling directly inside the tag, then that is called as inline styling. And if you apply the styling by using the style tag, that is inside the head section, then that is called as internal styling. But if you apply the styling through an external file, then that is called as external styling. Alright, so these are the three buzzwords when it comes to CSS. So now let's go back to the style file. And as you can see here, we've already applied the color property to the H1 and the P. But the main problem here is that, let's say I have another heading here. So I have another H1 and I'm going to type in as, this is a secondary heading. So if I save that, as you can see here, the same styling property has been applied to the second heading as well. But in some cases, we don't want the styling applied to all the headings present inside the website. So we only want the color to be applied to the first heading. So in order to make it so that only that tag is affected, what we can do is that instead of actually applying this color property to the H1 tag directly, we can select the first heading and apply the properties to it. And the way that you can do that is by typing in the class name. So for the tag, we can type in an attribute called as class that equate that to a particular name. So it can be anything you want. Like let's say I can type in main heading. So that will become the class name. Now let's go back to the style.css and let's remove H1 from here. And in this case, I can type in main_heading. But if I save that, that property will not be applied. And that is because main heading is not a tag name. Instead, it's a class name. So in order to differentiate that, you have to put a dot before that. So whenever I put the dot, that means that whatever is followed by the dot will become a class name. Alright. Now if I save that, as you can see, the styling property is applied to the first heading and only to the first heading and not to anything else. If you want the same property to be applied to the secondary heading as well, you can give the class here and you can type in the same name once again. That property will be applied, right? So using class names, you can actually define properties and whichever element has that class name will have that property applied to it. So apart from classes, you can also use what are known as IDs. So if you want, you can just type in here ID. Here, instead of giving it as a dot, you can type in a hash symbol. And then the styling will be applied. So the main difference between a class name and an ID is that IDs are unique, whereas classes are not unique. Meaning that multiple elements can have the same class name, but whereas IDs are unique, meaning that only one element can have that particular ID. So if this H1 has an ID of main heading, then this H1 cannot use that same ID name. Instead, it has to use something else. That is the only difference. Apart from that, all the properties will be applied in the same way. And this ID will become more prominent when JavaScript comes into picture. So when you're trying to discuss about JavaScript, at that point, IDs will be quite useful. So till then, you don't need to worry about IDs and you can directly use classes as they are more versatile. And I generally prefer using classes as well. Okay. So whenever you use the class name, automatically that property will be applied. So now let's go back to the style.css file and let's see some of the properties which are generally used on a day-to-day basis. The first property is going to be an asterisk. So you can type in an asterisk, then start a curly braces. Now inside this, whatever property you try to apply will be applied to each and every element present inside our website. So like let's say I can type in color and if I give it as let's say blue, and if I save that, then the blue color will be applied to every element inside our web page. Similarly, you can actually select the tags directly as well. We've already done that using the H1 and the P tag. So if you want, you can apply some properties to the body as well. And inside this, I can change the font family. So apart from color properties, you also have some other properties. The first one in that is going to be the font family. So we can actually change the font variant that we're using inside the browser. So for that, you can type in font-family. And then once you click on tab, you'll be shown some default fonts that you can use. So let's say I want to use this Korean new. So if I click on enter, then automatically that will be filled. And if I save this, observe the screen here. automatically whenever I save this, the font has changed, right? So if I comment this out and save it once again, this is the default font, right? So whenever I apply the font family and if I save this, there's a bit of change in the font styling, right? So that is being done through the font family. Similarly, you can apply the background color properties as well, right? So if you want, you can type in, let's say, black. And if you save that, automatically black color will be applied inside the whole website. And one more thing that you need to observe here is that we are trying to give the color property by using English text. That is blue or black, right? So this actually limits us to only a few colors. But if you want to use a whole color spectrum, then you have to use a different format. And there are multiple formats that you can choose from, one of them being the hex code. So the way that you can type in a hex code is by starting out with a hash, then you can type in the number of the color that you want to use. So the number for black is going to be 6 zeros. So I can type that in, automatically black color will be applied. So if I want to change that to white, I can type in 6 Fs. So once I save that, white color property will be applied. So both of these colors are easy to remember, but if you want to use a different color, then that becomes difficult, right? So in that case, what you can do is that you can open your browser and search for that particular color and then get the hex property of that color. So that can be done, but if you're using VS Code, then there's a shortcut for that. So if you type in something like, let's say, white or a black by default, then you hover over this, you'll get the color spectrum. And in this, you can select any color that you want. So let's say I want to go with this light red color. Whenever I click on that and if I hover out, then as you can see, the color has been applied. Similarly, you can change it from blue to, let's say, a yellow color to it. If I do that and if I save that, that color will be applied. Or if I want, I can go with black color or a gray color as well, and that's gonna work just fine. So apart from this hex code, there's also another version called as RGB. So you can type in RGB, and inside that, you're gonna have 3 values. The first one is gonna be 255, 255, and 255. If I save that, that's gonna give you white color. And if I give it as 0, 0, and 0, that's going to give me black color. So if you want, you can go with RGB version as well. And once you've typed in the black or the white color, you can hover over it and you can get the color spectrum and you can select whatever color that you want. So in this way, you can apply any color inside the whole color spectrum to your own website. Alright, so before closing this off, I just wanted to say that this video was made in collaboration with PacketPrep. So PacketPrep is a training and placement company located in Hyderabad. And these videos were specifically made for the job guarantee training program that they have going on right now. And that is the full stack Java developer program. So apart from these free video lectures, they also have some premium content as well, like lecture notes, practice and test papers for you to get better at your core concepts. And they also have offline as well as online classes for this program. And they also conduct multiple demo sessions as well. So you can attend any of these demo sessions and understand the things they are teaching as well as their training approach firsthand. So if you're interested, I provided the website link in the description down below. You can go there and check them out. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you have liked what you've seen till now. If you did, then please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.